So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Carolyn Pearson, who's a portfolio entrepreneur and experienced technology leader. So, Carolyn, firstly, thank you for spending some time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so as you've just said, I've got a portfolio of things that keep me out of mischief.
Brilliant.
I'm probably most well known for my work at Maiden Voyage. So I launched that business 18 years ago, and it's a specialist business providing travel safety training with a real focus on the human. So identity-led travel safety training, where you focus in on things like the risk-facing women travellers or LGBTQ travellers travelling to certain, jurisdictions. And then I'm sure we'll get into, I've got a very long corporate technology career. And so alongside that, I've also got another business, which doesn't have a website, but it's called Innovent Digital. And through that, I provide technology support to startups, scale-ups, and medium-sized businesses.
Brilliant, wonderful, and really key right now with every with the fast changing world of technology. I'm sure you must be pretty busy.
Yeah, pretty busy, but also there's a lot of confused companies around there who feel like, they should be doing something with AI, but they don't know what,
Yep.
or they know that they're just around the corner from a cyber attack potentially. So it's where do they spend the money? And then obviously in the ecosystem where I work, which is sort of startups, scale-ups and businesses that are growing, maybe looking to exit or, to merge, is what's going to create value for them as well.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. We mentioned it a little while ago, but perhaps we could start looking backwards. If you could tell us a little bit about your background, and how you got into business, and how you got to where you are right now, Carolyn.
Yeah, sure. So I was heading up technology for ITV, and I went off on a business trip to Los Angeles to look at a rights management system. So a very boring agenda, really. But as we'll get into, I'm a bit of a travel junkie. So I took the weekend prior to my business trip to have a nice time in LA, go shopping, get something for the Emmerdale party. And it was then that I realized that actually it can be quite boring and quite lonely as a business traveler. I mean, I had backpacked around the world, but that's different because you've got that community.
Yes.
But as a business traveler, it's a bit of a solo sport. You don't have
Yeah.
anyone to go out with maybe in the evenings, or you don't know if an area is safe. And so I happened upon the idea of creating a company called Maiden Voyage. And a Maiden Voyage is a play on women and travel. And initially we set off to be like a network, so I could say I'm going to be in LA Monday to Wednesday. Who else
Mm,
is going to be in the city? Can we meet up and have dinner? And people shared,
brilliant.
what their things that they like to do, so that
Yes.
you meet with someone who has something in common. And then it grew from there. So it was picked up quite quickly by CNN and the New York Times. And, we were blessed with all this PR. So it got traction quite quickly.
Yep.
And so it was a side hustle for a number of years. And then I got to a stage where it could be my main hustle. And I could, continue to do technology consulting, but not be tied to a corporate anymore.
Brilliant. Wowzers. That sounds very exciting. I mean, I like traveling myself. My daughter, funnily enough, is almost all on her way back from Thailand tomorrow night. So
Nice.
picking her up on Saturday. Um, and so looking back over your career and what are some of the key challenges you've had to overface you've had to face and overcome?
In my corporate career or in my business?
Both really. I mean, what is looking back? What are some of the things that have been the most challenging for you?
Yeah, so I think in my corporate career, I'd left school with barely any qualifications. They just didn't engage me. I wasn't allowed to do IT because I wasn't in the top set of maths. I wasn't allowed to do languages. According to my French teacher, I didn't have an aptitude for languages. And so that sort of set me off with a sort of I guess a persona that I thought I couldn't really do these cool jobs or whatever. But actually, I found my love of learning when I left school. So I immediately joined night school to learn French. I ended up going off and doing all my IT courses that led me to doing a degree. Then I went off and did an MBA and went to Cranfield School of Management. And then I just didn't living and working overseas, so I had to learn Dutch because I lived in Holland,
Right.
and been off on some immersion courses in France where you speak French for 2 weeks and you get fined if you speak English. So
Wow.
I think there were massive challenges. I think when people tell you that you can't do something, I know some people say, "Well, I'll do it to prove them wrong," but actually sometimes you can believe them, and
Yes.
also. I've passed trying to do something to prove somebody wrong because it was maybe something I didn't want to do anyway.
Yes.
And then in business, I think, more tangibly, Maiden Voyage had gone on a growth trajectory. We'd taken investment, got a team, business was scaling nicely. We got annual recurring revenue from some of the world's biggest organizations. And then bang, the pandemic came along.
Right. Yes.
Um, and I can only describe it as being in like Las Vegas. And rather than the money dropping down into where you win, it's like the money was being sucked up. So suddenly we lost 90% of our revenue overnight. And also some clients were paying on an annual subscription. And if they'd just paid and they knew they weren't going to be traveling, they had the audacity, multi-million pound organizations, to ask for the money back.
Wow.
Now, I know everybody needed to retain as much cash as possible, but that nearly tipped us under. And I had to let the team go, unfortunately. And yeah, it was quite a dismal time.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I've worked with a couple of travel businesses over time, and what one through COVID, and yeah, it was devastating, wasn't it? It was just like, and I very much admired the business I worked with because they grit the teeth as you did, and just said, right, we'll do what we can and see it through, and moved into a couple of other industries, which has now paid dividends in terms of he's now got a portfolio of 4 or 5 different
Yeah.
sector-based businesses.
Yeah.
But such a difficult time. Uh, and looking at business growth, obviously you had some real good success with Maiden Voyage and also in your corporate world. What's some of the biggest tips you can share about effective business growth?
Um, so I think what's really important is you can't get away from selling. And, salespeople are a wonderful special breed, and they've got skills that I would never profess to have. But the thing is, as an entrepreneur, you're doing it all in the early days.
Yes.
So I think two things. One is you've got to learn how to sell your product, but also you've got to get real with yourself that the product that you want to sell is probably not what people want to buy. And the sooner that you work out what people are going to give you money for, a lot less stressful it is.
Absolutely. It reminds me of one of my business here is a guy called Sir Terry Matthews, who is known to be the first Welsh billionaire. So he made a lot of money in microelectronics in the 80s, but very similar to Alan Sugar, but actually a much more successful career trajectory. But he's very private, so he's not on any socials. Most people haven't heard of him. But we managed to get him to speak at a national event we had quite a few years ago. And somebody just asked him, he said, look, I know it's a bit of a simple question, but what's your secret to business?
Yeah.
And he said, well, look, this might sound like a simple answer, but I asked my customers what they wanted and I got it for them. And it was like, yeah, of course, it's that, why, let's at least start with things people want. And as you say, selling things that people don't want is a bit nuts, but it's amazing how many organizations do.
Yeah, and it's soul destroying because actually, being really candid, the early business model for Maiden Voyage, bearing in mind this was more of a product for me so that I could socialize when I was traveling around
Yes.
the world. And it wasn't even meant to be a business; it was just meant to be, a dalliance
Brilliant.
with networking. Is that there was very minimal running costs, it was hosting and constant contact or whatever I was using for mailing lists. So it wasn't costing a lot. But then I thought, well, I could do with that, just maybe monetizing, selling a bit of advertising. And somebody came to me and said, "Oh, I'm going to Beijing on business. Can you recommend a safe hotel that I could stay in, that's safe for women?" And so I actually did a survey and asked all the women across Maiden Voyage what they valued in terms of comfort, safety, security, things like that. And they gave me a big long list of things, things like double locking doors so that people can't get in with a master key, or proper coat hangers that you can get your dress and hang it in the bathrooms, practical things
Yep.
as well, and healthy options. And so then I got this standard, and we were measuring hotels against the standard. And when I was still at ITV and I worked latterly at the BBC and EasyJet, I did a lot of business travel, so I could also inspect hotels as and when I was out on the road, and say to the hotels that pass the inspection, "You pass this inspection, would you like to advertise on Maiden Voyage?" And I thought, well, maybe that's the business model. And I had a mentor at the time she's a sales monkey, that she's brilliant at sales, and she would ring me and she'd say, "How many hotels have you rung today?" And of course I was on this treadmill of ringing hotels trying to sell advertising that they didn't understand, they didn't want to buy, they couldn't
Yeah.
correlate with being on our website and having 50% extra heads in beds. And so, yeah, a few hotels did it, but actually that turned out not to be the business model.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's the other. You mentioned mentor there. You're probably, hopefully, aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know the best coaches you've worked with, whether that is business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, so when I was at ITV, I asked asked for a leadership coach, and it wasn't like a normal thing, but I was really super ambitious at the time, and they got me a coach from the company. I don't know if you remember Penna. So
Yes.
there was a lady called Dr. Ruth Smith who coached me for a number of years, and I asked for somebody who was tough. So they said, what kind of coach do you want?
Yep.
And I said, someone who's going to challenge me. And she's still exec coaching today. And actually we became friends. So it's always lovely to see her. And obviously I don't try and blag coaching hours or advice off her. We're genuinely friends now. And then in my business life, I would say the person who's sort of impacted me the most was actually our investor, a chap called Tony Rice, and Tony, not only, I mean, it was a rather peculiar investment story because I didn't go out for investment.
Right.
He tapped me on the shoulder on numerous occasions and asked if he could invest in Maiden Voyage. And I was utterly terrified that I would lose all his money. And so he practically had to beg me to be an investee. Anyway, eventually he invested, and he really showed his colours during COVID. It's like a rock. He's unflappable, super calm. I was having panic attacks because we needed to go out and get a bounce back loan, and
Yeah.
we were going through the redundancies, and it was completely unflappable. It was brilliant, and what he always said to me was, "Your sanity and your well-being is more important than the business."
Brilliant.
So first and foremost, board meetings were, "How are you? How's your partner? How's your family?" And then we get into the numbers and strategy and so
Brilliant.
on.
Brilliant. 100%. It is about, we've got to look after ourselves first. And yeah, it's so easy not to and be worried about other people and, the business, whatever. But if we don't look after ourselves, then we don't have anything really. I think that's so
No,
okay.
no.
I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with that travel analogy, but they always say when, in a plane, if ever it depressurizes and the masks come down, they say always put your own on before you put somebody else's, help somebody else. And I think that's true
Yeah.
in life in general and business especially. And
Yeah.
whether it's from mentors or business learning in general, but do you have any favorite quotes or sayings about business or success or life that you catch yourself using on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I mean, I used to live and breathe one, which is it's better to be an optimist and wrong than be a pessimist and right.
Ah,
Um,
love it.
have to say, I've toned down on that one a little bit because I think I've had, a few edges knocked off with the pandemic and live things. But I think mine, I've invented this one because it's true. It's true for me anyway. When your back's against the wall, that's when you get creative.
Yep,
When
brilliant.
when you have to do something, fear, imposter syndrome, whatever, there's no time or space for them. You just have to do something.
Brilliant. Love it. Absolutely love it. And similarly, any favorite books or podcasts you can recommend?
Well, actually, just picking up on your point, Chris, you talked about putting your own oxygen mask on first. So wellness is incredibly important to me.
Yep.
So maybe I'm not going to be an inspiration in terms of the people who are working a 26-hour day, because actually daily exercise, the whole holistic gamut is really important to me. So actually, I live and breathe sort of Dr. Chatterjee's wellbeing podcast. I sometimes dip into the Zoe podcast, things like that. So just things that are around health, wellbeing,
Brilliant.
exercise in particular. And then books, I'm going to give you a woo-woo book. Because actually, I think that's probably saved my life a couple of times. There's a book called The Untethered Soul. And it's an old personal development classic. And the message is, well, two things really. You've got this voice nipping at your head, as my friend Victoria says, which is always telling you what's going to go wrong. And then you start reacting to this thing that's going to go wrong. And then you start, panicking and not being your best self. So to know that that's there and that's normal.
Yes.
And then secondly, just accept where you are. It's a lot easier than
Yep.
resisting where you are.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it is just that acceptance. This is how it is. Doesn't mean how it has to be all the time, but this is how it is right now. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And on the learning topic, what have you learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Carolyn?
I think tied to the health and well-being stuff. Well, a couple of things, I guess, that I've got my own back. So I will, prioritize what's good for me and my health, well-being, the people that I surround myself with, and that I can trust myself implicitly. And
Right.
that's a good place to be, because I think if you can't trust yourself, then you just can't trust other people.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Trust is so important, isn't it? And I think that whole, and it a big part of creating it is being authentic, being true to ourselves, trusting ourselves as
Mhm.
being the best version we really are, rather than trying to pretend to be somebody else. So
Yeah,
somebody quote, as I say, from the quote from one of these conversations I had quite a long time ago. She had a lovely quote because she said, "Be yourself because everybody else is taken."
yeah,
And I
yeah.
love that. I just think, yeah, that's bang on, absolutely bang on.
And I think in tough times, people do tend to put a mask on,
Yes,
that everything's okay, or oh, business is fine. Yeah, we're doing this, that, and the other. And it just makes you really awkward. And I've got a sort of playful, mischievous side, and I like sharing, the ridiculous things that I've got wrong, or
yeah,
whatever. And it just, if people don't relate to it, then you
yeah.
know they're not having a great day, I think.
That's their challenge. Exactly right. It's their
Yeah.
challenge. No, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I think you said earlier. I was going to say I forgot, but you said when people tell us that we can't do it, they're actually telling us that they can't do it. And
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I think that's the key thing to understand. And it's fine. It's absolutely fine that you can't do it, but it doesn't mean I can't. But as you
No,
say, freeing yourself from a need to prove them wrong is also a liberating thing to do.
absolutely. I don't play that game. If somebody said, "Oh, I don't know, you can't speak Chinese," well, I don't particularly want to speak
Yeah, I
Chinese.
don't
So
want to.
you're right. Yeah.
I love that point. Well, I don't really want to. Yeah, that's it's really interesting, isn't it? And I'm keen to know your thoughts here. Our definition of a true business in action coach is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without its owners. And from your experience and career, what are your thoughts on that as a definition?
I think it's essential because otherwise, the business starts owning you. Um,
Yes,
and that's a tough place to be where you what happens if your business owns you is you end up working with people that you don't want to work with, on contracts or assignments that just are not your thing, just to get the money in.
brilliant,
So I totally buy that.
brilliant, love it. So looking forward, then, Carolyn, what does the future look like, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
So I think luckily you can tell that I'm not a spring chicken, and so I've got to a position I think in mindset, but in life and in business where I've got some autonomy now about who I work with and what projects I
Yeah,
work on and which parts of my businesses, which levers I will pull depending on how it fits with everything else. And
brilliant.
so I intend to I guess fertilize that ground, in terms of gravitating towards things that light me up, give me joy, or I'll learn something because I love learning new things.
Brilliant.
And I think the challenge will be there are so many opportunities, is not overstretching myself so that I can't commit to my more holistic pursuits.
Yeah, mate, yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And I mean, looking back, not so much your career, but perhaps the business. Is there anything, if you were to start again, that you'd do significantly different, do you think?
Yeah, so I mentioned that Maiden Voyage was a side hustle for a number of years.
Yes.
And I had a big, big job. My last big corporate job was at EasyJet. And had nice bonus and share schemes and things like that. Um, and I probably thinking about it, I should probably have I guess kept that the consulting work going longer, rather than putting myself through the stress of trying to make a business work prior to have not having improved the business model.
Yes. No, I mean, that's a great learning, isn't it? It sounded like yeah, he's been able to that if you can, and I think that's really valuable. And so, final question: what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
Um, Yeah, so I've been fortunate that I've had lots and lots of brilliant opportunities. I've worked and
Yeah.
traveled a lot abroad. I've spoken at conferences in New York and Dubai, all over the place, and just done incredible things. Some things are way too shocking to be announced on a podcast. Um,
Brilliant.
but I would say to the 18-year-old self, you're going to get presented with loads of opportunities. If they look exciting or even a little bit scary, then you definitely need to say yes to them. Don't spend too much time, figuring out the pros and cons. It will all work out.
Yeah, nice, nice. I, I was talking with somebody earlier. There's a great quote that I like, about keep going if things are challenging, and it was, I think it was from the is it the best exotic marigold hotel,
Oh
um,
yeah.
where he says if it'll all be right at the end, and if it's not all right,
Yeah.
it's not the end, and that definitely works for me. I think it's wonderful. Is just keep going. Carolyn, it's been fascinating talking to you this afternoon, and thank you. I really do appreciate spending some time with us. And for anyone that's watching would like to get in touch with you, what would be the best way of doing that, do you think?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Well, look, it'd be great to swing by in the 6 to 12 months to just see where we're going with the
Mhm.
number of threads and strands that you've got. I think you mentioned you've just started a new engagement in South Yorkshire. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So I've just completed the pilot with a group of other brilliant tech scale-up advisors for Tech South Yorkshire.
Brilliant.
So we've been supporting 25 businesses in the tech sector on their scaling journey. And I've just joined Business Sheffield, and so I will also be there fully funded by Sheffield City Council to support growing and scaling businesses. And finally, I'm doing some work as an associate with BHP, the accountancy firm, setting up their technology consulting practice. So that's where we're supporting slightly bigger businesses.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, brilliant. Well, good luck at all that's going on. And I say it'd be great to swing by in another 6 to 12 months and see what's going on. But for now, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.